I'm Councillor Sam Forsyth, and I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee C of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, could I invite everyone please to mute their microphones for the moment so we can just improve the sound quality while I outline the procedure and deal with housekeeping matters. Could I also ask please that you turn off your cameras with the exception of committee members unless you are the person speaking. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. Could I also ask please that everyone attending today's hearing please has their mobile phones and any other electronic devices on silent, and could you please be in a room or environment which is free from any distraction or any unnecessary noise. As you can hear, I'm speaking relatively slowly and hopefully clearly so everybody can follow. It is vitally important for what I hope are obvious reasons that those attending this meeting and making representations are able to hear me and members of my subcommittee and the officers. Any distractions brought to my attention could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another date and time under the regulations for these types of meetings. I can confirm that this is a public meeting and therefore is being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. Members of the press or public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. I'm now going to move to declarations of interest. Could I remind members that they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes. I have a declaration to make. I indicate now that I know my learned friend, Miss Clover, who is the barrister representing the licence holder. I know her in a professional capacity, and I would ask for that to be recorded. There are no apologies submitted for this hearing, so can I welcome you to this hearing in respect of an application for an expedited review in respect of a licence for the glamorous show bar Albany House, 27 to 35 Hurst Street in Birmingham, B5 4BD. As I've indicated already, my name is Councillor Sam Forsyth and I am chairing this meeting. Together with me are other members of the subcommittee, Councillor Diane Donaldson and Councillor Penny Wagg.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. In addition, we also have present the licensing officer, David Kennedy. Good morning, Mr. Kennedy. Good morning, Mr. Chair. In addition, we have the committee manager, Sophia Misra. Good morning.
Morning, Chair.
We also have the committee lawyer, Joanne Swampali. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair.
Could I ask all the other parties to identify themselves, please? Firstly, the applicant, West Midlands Police, and that's Mr. Swallow.
Yes, Mark Swallow, West Midlands Police. Good morning,
Thank
Chair.
you. Next, the licence holder and their representatives, Mr. Eason.
Good morning. Yes, Mr. Eason here.
Thank you. Then my learned friend, Miss Clover.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, and to your colleagues. Yes, I'm here to represent Mr. Eason at the Glamorous Show Bar.
And do we also have Mr. Moore?
Madam Chairman, Mr. Moore is at a hospital appointment and he won't actually be joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And Mr. Moore, the committee will know, is a respectable licensing consultant within Birmingham, and he's supporting Mr. Eason. That they'll know who he is.
Thank you. And Miss Hopkins, is Miss Hopkins going to join us this morning or not?
Hi, Chair. Yes, I'm here. I'm here on behalf of the landlord.
Thank you very much. Could I ask if any persons present making representations wish to withdraw those representations at this stage of the hearing?
No, Chair.
Thank you. I will assume that all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend those procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online. But I wish to assure everybody that any such amendments will not impact on any party's right to a fair hearing. We'll be using the chat function, which you'll find at the top of your screen in the toolbar to communicate. Please click on the chat function, the speech bubble to go into chat. If you do not have access to that for any reason, please use the raise hand function. Could you all please now confirm that you have access to that chat function by typing in your name, please? The meeting will not begin until everyone has done so. Thank you. With the exception of committee members, please keep your camera off unless you are the person speaking. If you have any technical issues with the internet or with your broadband or any issues with sound, I may, in my discretion, ask everyone to turn their cameras off. But please use the chat function and indicate if you have any difficulties with the audio quality or if you can't hear. Could I ask at this stage if anybody has any preliminary points to raise? No, thank you. I'm now going to briefly outline the procedure that we will be following for today's hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer, David Kennedy, will present the report. Then the applicant will be asked to present their case. We are asking everybody, please, if they could do their presentations, make their submissions in approximately 20 minutes or so. Then the licence holder and his representative will be able to make their case. Again, could we invite people to keep those submissions to approximately 20 minutes or so. Could I remind people, please, to speak as slowly and as clearly as they possibly can. Officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and this hearing is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. Unless it is your turn to speak, please use your microphone, mute your microphone, and use the chat function to communicate. Members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but will try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless members consider it appropriate. Where there are questions raised by members of the subcommittee or those present, please signify this by using the chat facility, and the committee manager will alert me if I do not notice any of those questions. If at any point you wish to speak, please type the word speak into the chat function. Can I also indicate it may be necessary from time to time for the subcommittee to take legal advice. I may at my discretion ask all parties to wait in the meeting whilst members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We will then return to this hearing and continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I will invite all parties to make brief closing submissions. And can I stress that no decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. I hope that's all reasonably straightforward for everybody. With that, so could I please ask Mr. Kennedy to present the report, please, as slowly and as clearly as you can. Mr. Swallow. Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. West Midlands Police have applied for an expedited review of the premises licence in respect of Glamorous Show Bar, Albany House, 27 to 35 Hurst Street, Birmingham B54BD. The application has been made under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003 as amended and has been accompanied by a certificate signed by a senior member of the force stating that, in their opinion, the licensed premises have been associated with serious crime. A copy of the application and certificate are published at Appendices A and B. In accordance with the regulations, the licensing authority has given the premises licence holder and responsible authorities a copy of the application for review and a copy of the certificate. This meeting has been arranged in order to consider whether it is necessary to take any interim steps in respect to the licence pending the determination of the review. The current premises licence is included at Appendix C. The interim steps that must be considered at the hearing are modification of the conditions of the premises licence, exclusion of the sale of alcohol by retail from the scope of the licence, removal of the designated premises supervisor from the licence, and/or suspension of the licence. It should also be noted that at 9:36 p.m. last night, the licensee submitted a designated premises supervisor variation application, which sought to take immediate effect and effectively replaces Raphael Clark as the DPS with Leanne Kerry-Watts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Could I ask the applicant now, Mr. Swallow, please, to make a presentation?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Glamorous Show Bar is situated at Albany House, 27 to 35 Hurst Street in Chinatown, Birmingham. Postcode being B54BD. It has a premises licence number 1414 and is licensed for licensable activity between the hours of 1000 hours and 0600 hours the next morning on each day. At 0440 hours on Sunday the 16th of October 2022, the premises was open and conducting licensable activity. At this time, a male has approached the premises and has been involved in an altercation with door staff from the premises. This has resulted in the male being detained by two members of the premises door staff and being restrained on the floor. This has rendered the male unable to defend himself and he was not struggling. A third member of door staff, who was not involved in the detention of the male and who was stood at the entrance, was next to a metal crowd control barrier, which was approximately 3 foot in height by 6 foot in length in dimensions. This member of door staff has repeatedly struck the head of the male on the floor, being restrained with the barrier. This has led to the male lapsing into unconsciousness. Officers have attended the scene and have rendered first aid until medical assistance has arrived, and the male was then taken to the QE hospital, where he had to be placed in an induced coma because of his injuries. The injuries the male has apprehended have not yet been ascertained. The 3 security guards have been arrested for the offence and have been interviewed in regards to the matter. Security guard have been released under investigation whilst inquiries continue. This is a vicious attack by a member of security staff from a licensed premises on a male that was unable to protect themselves due to being restrained, and this male was not struggling. Door staff are employed by licensed premises to ensure that the licensing conditions are being promoted, in particular that members of the public are safe. In this case, it is a person that is in a trusted position that has actually carried out this unprovoked attack. The Glamorous Show Bar has been subject of a number of interventions from West Midlands Police in relation to incidents and conduct of their staff, including an incident earlier this year when a minor review was submitted and the security company changed due to assaults on members of the public. Section 18, wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, is a serious crime by virtue of sentence for the offence, and in this case is aggravated by the use of a weapon, and the fact that the perpetrator of the offence is a person appointed to protect the public. Further, 2 members of security staff have witnessed this assault, and they do nothing to prevent it from carrying on and do not render adequate first aid to the victim of the assault. Initially, as in the notes in front of you, I was going to ask for the licence to be suspended and the DPS to be removed. However, I have received communication from the premises licence holder that they were going to put in place measures that they believed would mitigate this situation. The basis of this was that they were going to change the security firm, change the designated premises supervisor, and I can confirm that an application to do that is with West Midlands Police as we speak, and they would implement a policy whereby the management of the premises, when they were not doing other things, would go to the door to assist the security company with decisions and with managing them. I must say I was impressed that the premises would wish to make changes to try and mitigate this situation, and I've therefore changed my view as to what should be the interim steps that were put into place. And so instead of my initial submission, on due consideration, I would now invite the committee to put in place 4 conditions, which I believe would then mitigate the situation. First condition would be that the premises would conclude licensable activity at 0400 hours each day, and the premises be clear of all customers by 0430 hours each day. My rationale behind that particular time is that if you look from January of this year till now, in terms of assaults and public order offences, there are 26 offences. 24 of those offences have occurred after 0400 hours. 9 of those offences are where door staff are the offenders. The second condition I would ask for is that the premises change the security providers. The third condition I would ask for is that the designated premises supervisor will be removed and replaced. And the fourth condition would be that a member of the management team from the premises would have control and direction of the security team at the premises when it is open for licensable activity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Swallow. Is there anything else that you wish to
Chair,
add?
may I ask, Chair, could I just ask that Mr. Swallow repeat the 4th one? I didn't catch it, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry, of course. That would be that a member of the management team from the premises have control and direction of the security team at the premises when it's open for licensable activity.
Thank you.
Could I ask one thing of Mr. Swallow? Could you repeat the first part where you were saying how many events had happened?
Madam Chairman, I have asked to speak in the chat function. No one's responded. I object to that evidence. I haven't seen it. It's not in the application. I've had no opportunity to take instructions on it, and it's not Regulation 18 compliant. So until we've had an opportunity to look at that in more controlled circumstances, could I ask that the officer does not repeat that, please?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Mr. Swallow, could you just simply repeat, could I invite you to repeat all of the 4 conditions, please?
Yes, certainly, Chair. 4 conditions. Number 1, premises finish licensable activity at 0400 hours each day, and the premises be clear of customers by 0430 hours each day. That's number 1. Number 2, the premises change the security providers. Number 3, the designated premises supervisor be removed and replaced. And number 4, a member of the management team from the premises will have will have control and direction of the security team at the premises when it's open for licensable activity.
Thank you. Could I ask if the members have any further questions? Councillor Wagg, Councillor Donaldson?
No further questions, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Swallow, can I just ask you this, please? And please just answer this either yes or no. Was there any recorded footage of this incident recovered from the premises?
No, however, another source of CCTV has been recovered.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask, please, if the licence holder and their representative can make their submission. So, Ms. Clover.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and I will try very hard to keep within the 20 minutes. I hope I might get a little indulgence if it's a little longer, because it's quite a lot to unpack here. I wasn't aware of the change of position by the police. That is very welcome. Can I start by saying that Mr. Matt Eason, as you know, is here and very willing to answer any questions and speak on his own behalf, but he's asked me to come along to present the position expeditiously and to deal with the police application as it appeared to be until a few moments ago. I know that he will want to work with the police as cooperatively as he possibly can, and he considers that he has always done that. I can't see a problem based on my instructions with 3 out of 4 of those conditions already.
Ms. Clover, forgive me for interrupting. Would you like a moment to consult with your lay client about the new conditions that are being put forward?
I don't think I need to, Madam Chair, because I think I will know the answer. 3 of them are matters I would have put forward today anyway.
Right, I give you that opportunity.
Yeah, the hours I will make comment on, and perhaps we can see where we are, and then if I need to take some further instructions about that, I can. But I think I can encompass the points in what I was going to say in any event. It's essentially, I was going to be making comment about a suspension, a proposed suspension. The hours is a lesser impact, but there still will be an impact. And I just wanted to work through what has happened here, because I think the committee will want to know. It's obviously going to be a concern to them. We haven't seen the CCTV yet. I understand it's town centre CCTV. So in my comments, I'm really taking this episode at its highest based upon what the police are saying. I have no reason to attempt to undermine what they're describing as behaviour by these door staff, which is, of course, completely and utterly outrageous. There is no excuse for what is being described at all. However, the basis of my submissions to the committee will be that the fault here, and licensing is obviously about addressing fault, transgressions, contradictions of the licensing objectives. The fault appears to lie firmly and squarely with the door staff themselves and their personal responsibility. They appear, whether it's one of them or all 3 of them, they appear to have gone completely rogue. And the police describe door staff as trusted, trusted so far as the public are concerned. I have to say trusted so far as the licensee is concerned as well. They're not direct employees of the licensee. The licensee is required to rely upon the integrity of the door staff, the door company that they employ, which is outsourcing the service essentially, and the door company then recruit, employ, continue to train, and are responsible for the individuals that they put on the door. So on any given night, the licensee will not necessarily know who is going to be deployed to their door. That is a matter for the door security company. So far as we are aware, any information that we have about this incident appears to come to this, that an individual, a member of the public, approached the door of Glamorous earlier in the evening and was turned away. So that the victim, as it were, in this scenario, has never gained entry into the premises. He came back again later on in the night, intoxicated, and we understand with a bottle, and was threatening door staff with a glass bottle. I'm not, again, attempting to make any excuses or to carve up responsibility any more than that, but that appears to have been the nature of the incident. But it is important to note that that individual had not been inside the premises at all. Just a word or two about Glamorous per se. Glamorous, Mr. Eason's premises, is one of 3 Glamorous bars in different cities in the country. Mr. Eason is an experienced licensee. Glamorous in Birmingham has been open and trading since 2015. There were incidents in 2018, which I note with interest that the police are not raising or relying upon, but I raise it for completeness. The committee may recall it, may remember it, but there was a review of Glamorous in 2018 of a very different nature. And the police at that time were also not asking for closure revocation. They were asking for a curtailment of hours. The committee did not accede to the request of the police for the curtailment of hours, but they imposed a restriction on hours, and the hours were open to their fullest extent again on an appeal. Now, that may not be relevant to today, but I include that for completeness. The police are commenting in their review application on other police interventions more recently, which may appear to be more pertinent because they relate to door security companies. And what's happened there is that the police came to Mr. Eason in around about March of this year. So there's been no issues since 2018. And although I appreciate there's been the COVID lockdown in that period of time, 2018 to 2022 is still quite an extensive period of trading within which the police were able to judge the operation of Glamorous and whether Mr. Eason had addressed any of the issues that they had identified in 2018. There appear to have been no problems in that space of time, no letters, no warnings, no concerned phone calls until around about March of this year, which is what the police are referring to. The police have referred to a minor review in their review application. What they mean is a minor variation application, which is a voluntary application by the licensee to vary their own license by adding a condition. That's what the police are talking about. And Mr. Eason did that at the request of the police because the police at that stage were unhappy with his door security company. Mr. Eason has used the same door security company for Glamorous in Birmingham since 2015, and that company is called More Secure. The police were not particularly happy with something that they had seen or something that had occurred and required Mr. Eason to vary his own license by adding a condition that he would only use an accredited door security company, accreditation that is known as ACS accreditation, which is a kite mark or a quality mark that is bespoke to the security industry. Now, ACS has always been quite a difficult accreditation to get. In more recent years, post-COVID, post-Brexit, post-furloughing and all the rest of it, it is even harder to get that accreditation out of the Security Industry Association, the SIA, which is the regulatory board for security companies. The police required that kite mark. Mr. Eason acceded to it. He varied his own license. He thereby had to change his door security company to the one that is now the subject of these concerns. That company, forgive me, is SNSG, which stands for the name of the company.
Ms. Clover, can I remind you just to slow down a little?
I'm so sorry.
Notes are being taken by hand, so thank you.
Forgive me, I'm trying to have a mind to the 20-minute limit and also to the pacing of the talk. I do apologise. I will be a little more measured. SNSG stands for Safety Net Security Group. That was the preferred door security company of the police in March of this year. And in essence, they required that company to come on board with Glamorous, and they approved that company. And ultimately, it is that company that has supplied the 1, 2 or 3 rogue door staff that have been involved in this incident. There appears to have been another occasion where the police, one of the licensing police officers, sat down with Otis, who is the owner of SNSG Security, and Mr. Eason to look at some CCTV about the behaviour of door staff. And Mr. Eason was unhappy about the behaviour of those door staff at an earlier point in this year and had cause to raise it with Otis, the owner of the company, and the owner responded by firing the 3 door staff who were implicated in the earlier CCTV footage, which again, I note the police haven't raised specifically. It may be part and parcel of the incidents that they're talking about. I don't know. I raise it to identify that Mr. Eason has been assiduous in dealing with the door company where any episodes of concern have been raised and requiring action by that door company to do something. And in this case, it was to sack those 3 door staff and to require new door security personnel to be deployed to the glamorous door. It was not those 3, it was another 3 who were implicated in this particular incident. It's of huge regret and frustration to Mr. Eason that he finds himself in this situation. He wishes to point out, and I can thoroughly endorse, that we have a situation nationally, both with the nighttime economy post-COVID and with the door security industry situation post-COVID, and both of those matters are worth raising briefly. Something has gone awry with our nighttime economy post-COVID. Everybody reacted to lockdown in their own particular ways, but so far as the demographic coming out into the nighttime economy is concerned, people appear to have gone, forgive the colloquialism, a little bit mad. And the demographic that no longer wishes to access the nighttime economy, or certainly was more reticent to do so post-COVID, have stayed away in their droves. And those who came out with great enthusiasm as soon as they were allowed to do so were, how shall we say this, perhaps not of the most law-abiding character. And we've had huge problems on the streets, and the police will no doubt be able to endorse this, with drug dealing and spiking and sexual offences on the street. These incidents have gone exponential since lockdown ended. These are phenomena that may settle. We're not sure. We're now a year or so in, and still licensees nationally and the police nationally are reporting a critical picture on our streets about how people are behaving. Post 2018 and the review that Mr. Eason went through, I don't think anybody is suggesting that he now has a problem within his premises or the customers that he attracts or their behaviour internally. That is not where we're seeing any problems, and I don't think the police would disagree with that. Where we are seeing problems is with the behaviour of public in the street and people who are approaching the door and not getting in. They're being refused entry. Their behaviour, their reaction is, again, put it mildly, exceedingly challenging. Still not an excuse for poor behaviour by door staff, but that's the context. That is what we're talking about here. And Mr. Eason is reporting serious challenges on our streets in the nighttime economy, which the police are finding equally difficult to deal with, and police resources are also very stretched. To add to this perfect storm, we've got a national security crisis. And I've touched on some of the factors, personnel departing post-Brexit or not being recruited post-Brexit, a difficulty in recruitment generally. Those who departed from the hospitality industry during lockdown have not returned, or if they have, the pay and conditions are not attractive. The entry requirements from the SIA have gone higher and not lower. It's harder to get in, and it's not as well paid as it was. And it's also a very challenging job to take. So recruitment is hugely difficult nationally, and this partly explains perhaps why some of the personnel being recruited are not of the highest calibre that one might wish. Again, it's not an excuse, but it is a phenomenon that is being faced not just by this licensee, but up and down the country.
Would you like to address us on the conditions been put forward by the police this morning?
I certainly will, Madam Chair. I'm addressing this in a little more detail because I don't know how the committee is going to react to anything that they have heard. There is no difficulty with conditions 2, 3 and 4. That the security providers, clearly this company, SNSG, is not going to be the right company going forward. Mr. Eason is, at least in the short term, going to bring across his security provision from Coventry. He has a glamorous bar in Coventry. He will be bringing across the door providers from that bar, which there's been no issues or difficulties, to ensure that he has somebody that he knows and trusts that he can use in Birmingham. That's going to be the immediate measure. Thereafter, I dare say he will be discussing this with the police as to what they want and who they want and how they want it running in the future. But that's the measure that is proposed today. So that will meet with the police requirement to change security providers. The DPS was a gentleman called Mr. Raphael Clark. There's no issue with him particularly, other than how he was stretched in terms of his duties. For that reason, he is being replaced by Leanne Watts, who was the duty manager, still is the duty manager at Glamorous in Birmingham. She's taken on the DPS role. The application went in last night with immediate effect. So unless the police object, and again, this is something we can discuss with the police as to whether they would object. I think they're aware of it. I'm not hearing this morning that they have a problem with Miss Watts. She is experienced. They will know her from her duties at Glamorous to date. And the benefit from Miss Watts is that she can fulfil condition 4 that the police have asked for, which is the scrutiny, the control and direction of the security team. So she can take on that closer role on the street level with security, monitoring the decisions that security staff make and making sure that she's on the spot in that dedicated role to monitor things going forward. The only thing I'm going to say about the hours is that there isn't a clear connection with hours. Sometimes the police feel as though a curtailment of trading hours per se is a cure for these sorts of incidents. It has to be said that these incidents are capable of arising, if they're going to rise at all, at any hour. This is not one of those that's connected to intoxication. The door staff who behaved badly were not intoxicated. So it is not one of those questions that's sometimes put forward, well, the later the hour, the more people drink, the worse they behave, and so on. The gentleman who was turned away much earlier in the evening. The fact that he came back later is serendipitous. There's no particular causal connection with the hours. It may well be that Mr. Eason reduces his hours, or he has a last entry policy in any event, which he put forward in 2018. The police have had no difficulty with it. I question it on the basis that it's not causally connected to what has happened. It is not an immediate and obvious cure for what has happened any more, I say, than Mr. Eason was responsible for the behaviour of the door staff. It's not a time-connected issue, and I put it in that way. I can take some further instructions about it, but I raise it from that point of view at this stage. The only other thing I very quickly wanted to raise, if I may please, is that there is a public sector equality duty issue here. I've raised it in the past with Birmingham. I don't always see it reflected in the committee reports, but Glamorous, as the committee and certainly the officers will know, is an LGBTQ+ premises. Impact on the licence has impact on the demographic. It is very important within Birmingham that LGBTQ+ premises are noted for the facility that they provide to persons with protected characteristics who need safe and appropriate places for them to go to access their nighttime economy. A curtailment of hours would have an impact on those clientele as well, and that does trigger the PSED, and I'm happy to address the committee further on that if that is required. I can pause there and assist the committee in any way, or Mr. Eason can assist the committee in any way, but I won't continue talking at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. I'm now going to turn to the committee members. Councillor Wagg, do you have any questions? You're on mute still.
Not at the moment, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson?
No, Chair, not at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask this? The proposed, well, the new designated DSP, Leanne Watts, you've mentioned that she's a deputy manager already at the premises. Can you outline what experience that she has?
May I turn to Mr. Eason for
Of course.
that? He will be the man who can tell you exactly.
Thank you.
Hello. Yes. So Leanne, she has worked for us for some time in the duty manager position. Prior to working for Glamorous, she worked at Chic nightclub for a number of years. She is a lady in her 40s, so she's not young and inexperienced. She's got plenty of experience in the industry. We had a meeting with her, and she was more than happy to take on the role. She also has experience with sort of diffusing situations, which was what we thought for the fourth condition that Mark's put forward in terms of having the manager / DPS on the front door would be a positive thing, because if she's there in control of the door team from a management point of view, she could diffuse situations as and when they arise, if she can spot that happening before it gets to the point it did on Saturday. So we're quite happy with her experience, which is why we put her forward for that role.
Thank you. Mr. Eason, you say she has many years experience. Could you just give the committee an idea of how many years she has? You've given us her age, but how many years experience does she have in the nighttime economy?
From what she's told me, I'm not quite sure when she started with Chic, but I know it's at least 10 years, because I remember seeing her working in there when I was a bit younger and would go on nights out there myself. So she has worked there for an absolute number of years, and so she does have extensive experience. So I would guess around the 10-year mark, but I could find out from her exactly how many years, but that's my guess.
Thank you, Mr. Eason. Any further questions? No? Thank you. I'm now going to go back to Mr. Swallow, West Midlands Police, and ask if he wants to make any closing remarks. Mr. Swallow?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to say that this has been a vicious, unprovoked attack by a member of staff, although not directly employed by Glamorous, works in their name. So this person who has perpetrated this attack and the two persons who have allowed it to occur and non-intervened represent Glamorous, represent our nighttime economy. That reflects very badly on all of us. However, as I said before, I do want to work with the premises. I've worked with the premises before, and I want to continue working with them. As I say, I've been impressed by the fact that they put forward proposals to try and mitigate this situation. I believe that the proposals I'm putting forward are proportionate, fair and necessary. I will address the 0400 time and reining the time back, because I would say to you that time is a factor here. Everything else over time has been changed. Change of the security company, change in the way things work, change in the training, having an ACS approved company. All those things have changed. The only thing that's been a constant has been the time. I believe now it's time for a change in those times, because, as has been said, although the door staff aren't under the influence of drink, time shouldn't be an issue to them. The people that have to deal with later in the evening are subject to having had more drink. they become more challenging. And this is seen, unfortunately, on a number of occasions now, door staff become offenders for assaults. I believe that the reduction of time to 0400 would prevent this. And I would recommend the 4 conditions that I've outlined to yourselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Swallow. I'm just going to return to Miss Clover to see if she wants to make any closing submissions.
Thank
Ms.
you, Madam
Clover?
Chairman. Just very briefly, if I may, please. It's not a good justification to amend the hours of the premises simply because that's the only thing left to amend. There needs to be a reason for it and a causal connection for it, and we don't have that yet. May I suggest to the committee or respectfully remind the committee that this matter will have to come back on a full review within 28 days. And at that stage, hopefully there will be more evidence. Hopefully we'll be able to see the CCTV, that the police can identify any patterns that they say are arising so far as hours are concerned, because Mr. Eason would say that there aren't no patterns, that there is no causal connection. It has to be said the police have long wanted to amend the hours of Glamorous, so it has to be said by me that if this is simply an opportunity for the police to curtail hours again for Glamorous, that would not be appropriate, and this is something that the committee in my submission will have to look at very carefully, and the full review might be the better time to do that when the full evidence is available. It's the door staff who pose the risk. A summary review is all about protecting the public from the risk posed by the premises due to their association with serious crime and serious disorder. Association is the important word so far as summary review is concerned. It's an immediate emergency protection for the public. In this instance, it's becoming fairly clear that it's not Glamorous per se, or the operation or the trade or the license of Glamorous that poses the risk to the public. It was these particular door staff, and if one wants to widen it out at all, the door company that is recruiting door staff of this ilk. Mr. Eason, the licensee, does not automatically and inevitably take liability for those door staff in quite the way that the officer describes, that they represent him in some way, or he somehow adopts liability for everything that they do. If you think about a similar example happening in Tesco, for example, or any other supermarket, and a security member goes rogue, one would not automatically implicate the management of Tesco and close the premises down or curtail their hours. There needs to be some kind of connection. And finally, I identify that these 3 members of door staff who do pose the risk to the public have been arrested but released. They are still out and about amongst the public. Clearly one of them, it would appear on what is available today, is of a somewhat dangerous mindset if he believes that is an appropriate way to react to anybody at any time, and yet they are still at liberty. They are still out in the public domain. Those would be my submissions. The 3 conditions, no issue whatsoever. This matter will be coming back before the committee in due course, and I ask the committee to take a cautious approach before having that kind of impact upon the business. These things can be very difficult to recover from. And it's a difficult thing to overturn an interim step in a summary review as well. The facility and the law is there, but it's a difficult thing to access. These things can have damaging and long-term impacts if clientele, and this is not the fault of the clientele of Glamorous. I have to make that point again. This is nothing to do with customers of Glamorous. If expectation is thwarted and they come to premises expecting certain hours, expecting entry, expecting this and that, and they cannot do it, they may very well change allegiance even in a short space of time, and that is a difficult commercial position for Mr. Eason to recover. So I do ask the committee to proceed slowly and with caution in that final respect. Unless I can help you, though, that's what I would wish to say.
Thank you, Ms. Clover. I'm now going to ask all parties to leave the Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into private session whilst we make our decision. Once we have reached that decision, we will come back in to the public session and I will announce the short decision with full written reasons to be sent to all parties within the statutory time limit. So we will now committee will now reconvene in private session whilst we consider the evidence that we've heard. hearing this morning?
Claire, I'm not sure that the live stream has started
Has it
again.
not?
If Michelle could just confirm. It has started now, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I thank everybody for attending this hearing this morning? Having considered the application made and the certificate issued by West Midlands Police under Section 53A of the Licensing Act 2003 for an expedited review of the premises licence held by Matthew Eason in respect of the glamorous show bar at Albany House, 27 to 35 Hurst Street, Birmingham, B54BD. This subcommittee has determined that conditions 2, 3 and 4 proposed by the police in the hearing shall be adopted, namely that the premises shall change the security provider. Raphael Clark shall be removed as the designated premises supervisor for the premises and replaced. And thirdly, a member of the management team of the premises will have control and direction over the security team when the premises is open for licensable activities. You will be notified of the full written decision of this subcommittee with the reasons within the time limit allowed by statute. Thank you. And can I thank you all once again for your attendance here this morning. That is the end of this hearing.